Good morning, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here in Aachen. For me, the first time to be at this conference, this important conference, and to hear about the exciting opportunity for the region towards 2032. Very, very exciting. I want to speak as an architect, as an urban planner, about cities. And I want to talk about how we could create a smart strategy for this region, using the best of technology to the purpose of creating thriving life for everyone. So there are three key components, in my opinion, to a smart strategy. We heard a lot yesterday about leadership. We need capable leadership. We also need finance. We need finance for decades, not just for years, but for decades. And thirdly, we need a clear spatial planning vision. And it's this third element that I want to focus on. We need to have an eye on the prize. What would it look like? So let me be a little provocative. Mobility is not the answer. I'll say it again. Mobility is not the answer. No, please stay, please stay. It's an important part of the equation. Very important. We need to move. But what else? What else? What happens next? We can't just keep moving. If we just keep moving, we'll never do any business. We'll never meet any friends. So I'd like to talk about how we can do both. Because ultimately, people are the answer. And often, people, as we are now, stood or sat still in space. Because it's only, and I'm sure you'll tell me I'm wrong, but it's only when we're in space like this that we can truly transact. Yeah, we can turn around and face each other in our autonomous vehicle. But how do we introduce our friends to new people, as we've all done in this conference, yesterday evening, today? You should meet my co-director, Anna. Everyone should meet my co-director, Anna. And then you talk with Anna and you discover, you're from Aachen as well, or you went to university, do you know so-and-so? And then suddenly you go, I have an idea, there's a business, there's an opportunity. Only because I've introduced. So how do we introduce people? These very important processes often happen while we're drinking a beer, or drinking a coffee, or eating food, and being social. So this isn't, if you like, soft. This is hard-nosed business. And so we need great places for people. And so what I want to talk about are the places. I want to talk about placemaking, how we design great places. And the science of cities can help us. Yes, algorithms. Yes, artificial intelligence. This is my business, using science to better predict how places will work for people. Networks of space and systems of cities are really important, and this region demonstrates, as much as anywhere I can think of the importance of the system of cities. Not just one place, but many. And so, what can we say about North Rhine-Westphalia as a place, as one single place? So I have a lot to get through, and I want to make lots of progress. Placemaking is about streets and squares. Great cities are about great streets and squares. So please, 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 can we have the technology providers who will help us do this? Yes, we need to travel there, but we need to get out of our vehicles and be there too. Now, one of the big challenges is in the last 50 years, our cities have become sterile places, as our streets have become roads, over-dominated by traffic. On the left is the Champs-Élysées in Paris, where the property values and the quality of life is the highest on the street. On the right is the city of Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, where bad design has created the lowest property values and no significant cultural life on the street. We have a choice. Which city would you like to live in? I think we would all choose the streets on the left. Science tells us that there is money to be made in the connectivity of streets. So my company grew out of a university, University College London, where we discovered that the more connected the street, the hotter in this algorithm, the more flow of people. The more flow of people, the better quality of life, the higher property value. So we can create economic equations that demonstrate why we should build great streets, why we should connect. The science demonstrates we can predict pedestrian movement, as well as cycle movement, as well as vehicle movement, using very simple algorithms that help us to plan our cities better and more effectively. And we've put these techniques into practice for 30 years now as a company operating out of London, but also out of Beijing and Tokyo and Sydney, and working all over the world on projects like the Olympic Games in London, a wonderful event that is still a wonderful event because the park of the Olympic site is still used for people. And it was very carefully designed to connect into the communities either side of it so that it has life in legacy. On the right is our analysis of streets, and the algorithm flows through those streets and predicts which are most likely to be used by pedestrians because they provide the most convenience, the simplest journey, and equally for cycles and equally for cars. So we can optimize the design according to the connectivity. And then this makes shopping work more effectively. Cities are not chaotic or random. Over time, the right use moves to the right place. So the shops move to those streets that are most connected. The challenge is when we plan a new city from scratch, we don't have the benefit of history to make mistakes, to try again, to find the right place. So this is where we need algorithms to help us make sure we put the right thing in the right place and then connect it together. Inside buildings as well, we found we can predict where people spend their money in shopping centres and which parts of the shopping centre suffer because they're not connected. The space doesn't flow. And we all understand this as human beings. Our brains are wired for navigation. We all understand when the space is complicated at every scale, from the scale of the building to the scale of the region. So as an architect, I have a design tool. I can say, what would happen if I add my design to an existing network of streets? Will the new streets that I'm creating flow? Will they be hot red or cold blue? In this case, they're cold blue because they don't connect. They don't flow. So I can start again, try a different scheme, sketch, and discover that with the right connections, we can drive movement through places. Cars, cycles, pedestrians. And we've done this on hundreds of projects over 30 years, including very famous projects like Trafalgar Square, the most important public space in the United Kingdom, which was completely redesigned by Norman Foster, the architect, and we supported him with our technology to create the new staircase, to close one road to traffic and open it to pedestrians. And this was done by using technology to observe and understand what people did. We must observe people. We must observe their real behaviors as they walk and as they behave, as they interact. And then explaining it using science and technology so the politicians had the confidence to make the decision to deliver that new space, to forecast the impact of the design, and then to go back afterwards and demonstrate how it worked. And this was 1996 we were doing this work. It was opened in 2003 and it worked. I wouldn't be standing here if it hadn't worked. So today we are now using artificial intelligence to grow plans for cities so that we're trying to disrupt architecture and planning. Architecture and planning has too much guesswork. So if we can use algorithms to grow the city and show where the streets should be and where the uses should be. We think this is the future. Cities like Astana in Kazakhstan, cities like Changchun in northeast China, which are growing so quickly, as we heard about China yesterday and the scale at which things are happening. We need to make sure we have great streets, and we also need to make sure we have great spaces. So once we can flow people to those places, they can interact, be social, share, innovate, and trade. So back in the UK, we are making increasingly large spatial models of the whole of the country, actually. So I'm showing you one example here from the north of England, which I think shares some properties with the region that we're now in. Lots of old industry which needs new uses. Lots of dynamic young businesses. And we can look at the major traffic flows on the main streets and dial down the algorithm to give us the local flows on the local streets. So we don't just prioritize motorway building, but we also prioritize the building of small streets for cafes, small streets to live on, where we might only ever walk, we might never drive. We need everything. And technology can help us also zoom right in and make sure we have the very detail of the city centre, locally and globally. And we, as I say, are looking at the whole country to optimize rail traffic. Where would we build new rail? Where would we improve the signalling? Where would we put more carriages onto the tracks to carry more people? The technology that started with the design of Trafalgar Square is now being used to advise the UK government on the future of the entire country. I wish I could give them some other advice as well about the future of the UK, but I can't. I won't mention the word. Because if we can improve rail connectivity, we can improve access to jobs. We can make it easier for people to find work and to have choice about where they work. So rail, road, walking, cycling, it's all important. Now, we are, like many of you, under the weight of big data. There is so much data around. What we've discovered is that most data is spatial. And so because our algorithm understands space, we can tag data to space, and we can understand that data more because we have the algorithm to tag it. And so we place spatial accessibility as the base layer in integrated urban models, which include other data sets, air quality, crime patterns. I'll show you some. Here's a crime pattern from Australia. We've discovered that the people who really understand space, not so much the urban planners and architects, but the criminals. Criminals really understand space. They understand how to exploit space. So they break into the houses on the quietest streets, where there are fewest people to see what they're doing. And so we're working with police forces and security forces to make sure we build the right streets and don't create these mistakes. We're learning about loneliness, working with health communities who are dealing with people who are saying, I'm lonely, I'm depressed, because they don't have a car, or their partner has the car, or they can't drive because they're older people, or they live in a place that, not only that, but they have no neighbors to talk to. And this costs huge amounts of money to be lonely. So can we build better, more connected places to avoid loneliness? Big data is helping make the case to avoid loneliness. We understand that if we have active, dense, connected cities, fewer people need to drive to work. Some people here may not like that, but more people can walk, more people can cycle, and we don't have to rely on the car. Also, more people are in good health. The data are showing us now. As we break these silos, smash the silos, use big data to integrate. As we heard yesterday, we have to avoid silos. We can understand, we can work with doctors, we can work with nurses, we can help them deliver their needs through spatial planning. So let's come closer to home and think about this region. And this is where I make all my mistakes, because I'm new to the region, so forgive me. But I wanted to finish with just some thoughts. This is a system of cities that we are in. It's a system of towns and a system of villages as well. And how it connects is something we can use our algorithms to begin to understand. So I brought with me another colleague from London, Kimon Krentz here, who has focused his master's and PhD work at University College London on this region. And we have, if you like, a platform from which to build. How could we connect your health data, your crime data, your wealth data to this kind of modeling? How could we have a smart approach? I'm not going to go too much further today because I can't. We're just at the beginning. But what would a smart approach look like? It would use these smart planning tools, but it would also use smart processes. It's not just about the computer, it's about the people. And by that, I mean bringing people together in workshops, creative workshops. People who, archaeologists, people who understand demography, culture, spirituality, the environment, water, air. Yes, mobility, but not only mobility. We need all of these experts in the room working together. And then the ideas happen, and then we can start to design. So we need a smart process. We need to collect data by sensing. We need to map it, make it visual. We need to analyze it using algorithms, then react with ideas and test those before we build them to make sure they're right. So in the final minute, I just want to offer a definition of a smart approach. There would be a spatial dimension, very important, at every level, from the macro level of the region, even of the whole world, especially if we're dealing with the Olympics. The meso level and the micro level. We have to make it work for people at every scale. Secondly, time is a really important dimension to think about. Are we talking before we construct something, how we design it? Are we talking about how we construct something, the logistics of bringing materials to a site? Or are we talking about afterwards and how we maintain and manage? So we have a space-time diagram, very simple, to which we can add the big data and create a third dimension on that, based on the different kinds of data sets I just described. Space, time, and data. And if we have this organizing framework, then we can place different solutions into it. Mobility solutions, non-mobility solutions, financial solutions, social solutions. So to close, I think in creating a spatial vision for the region, I would think about three ideas. Polycentric. I'd think about people. I'd think about place. I'd think about this for the region. I'd think about it in terms of the region's relationship with the country. And I'd think about it in terms of the country's relationship with Europe and with the rest of the world. And I hope I've given you some ideas to think with. Thank you very much.